Rain hammered the narrow street in Cleveland's old Brooklyn neighborhood like bullets against pavement. The kind of rain that makes people run with newspapers over their heads, that turns gutters into rivers, that washes the city clean of pretense. Naomi Brooks felt the wheelchair shudder beneath her. The front wheel had dropped into a storm drain grate, wedged at an angle that made the whole frame tilt forward. Water rushed around the spokes, pooling in the footrest. Her hands gripped the armrests, knuckles white, rain streaming down her face and mixing with something else she refused to acknowledge as tears. She tried to rock backward. The chair didn't budge. People flowed past like water around a stone. A businessman in a gray suit glanced over, then away. Two women with umbrellas crossed to the other side of the street. A teenager with headphones walked by close enough that Naomi could have reached out and touched his jacket. Nobody stopped. Naomi tried to stand. Her legs, which had forgotten how to hold her weight 3 years ago, trembled and gave out. She collapsed back into the seat, pain shooting up her spine. The rain was cold now, seeping through her jacket, through her jeans, through the thin barrier between dignity and desperation. That's when she saw him. A black man in his mid-30s, wearing a worn denim jacket and work boots, standing about 10 feet away. He had stopped walking. His hand was raised slightly, like he wanted to help but was waiting for permission. His other hand clutched a small backpack decorated with cartoon butterflies. Their eyes met. Naomi saw the hesitation in his face. The calculation. The risk assessment that black men learn to make in split seconds when approaching white women in public spaces. She had never thought about that before the accident. Never had to. "I can't walk," she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. The words felt like an admission of defeat, of every limitation that had defined her life since the day her car spun out on black ice and wrapped around a telephone pole. Then she said the thing that surprised even herself. "Leave me." She said it because she was tired. Tired of needing help. Tired of being a problem other people had to solve. Tired of the looks, the pity, the well-meaning strangers who treated her like a broken thing that needed fixing. She expected him to walk away like everyone else. But Elijah Carter stood there, rain soaking through his jacket, water running down his face, and he didn't move. Around them, the city kept flowing. Cars splashed through puddles. People hurried past with heads down. Somewhere, a horn honked. He took one step forward, then another. The distance between them was only a few feet, but it felt like crossing a canyon. Naomi could see him thinking, weighing options, aware of every person who might be watching. Every assumption that might be made about a black man approaching a disabled white woman stuck in the rain. "Ma'am," he said quietly, his voice somehow cutting through the storm. "I'm not going to touch anything without asking. But that wheel looks stuck. If you want, I can try to lift the chair back while you steer." It was the most careful offer of help Naomi had ever received. She looked at his face, really looked, and saw something she hadn't expected. Fear. Not of her, but for himself. Fear of being misunderstood, misidentified, misjudged. "Okay," she whispered. Elijah Carter stayed. Elijah had learned long ago that helping could be dangerous. Not the act itself, but the perception of it. The way a hand extended in kindness could be reframed as aggression. The way proximity could be interpreted as threat. The way being black and male in public spaces meant performing caution at every moment. His daughter Lily was at home with Mrs. Chen from downstairs, probably watching cartoons and eating the apple slices he'd cut that morning. He'd told her he'd be back in 20 minutes. That was 40 minutes ago. His phone was in his pocket, probably buzzing with messages from Mrs. Chen asking if everything was okay. But he couldn't walk away. Marcus, his best friend since high school, would have called him crazy. "Man, you got your own problems. You got Lily. You got bills. You don't need to be picking up random white women in the rain. You know how that ends." Elijah did know. He'd grown up knowing. His father had taught him the rules. Keep your head down. Don't make waves. Don't give them a reason. When Elijah was 16, his father had been detained for helping a woman carry groceries to her car. Someone had called the police, said a black man was following a woman. By the time everything was sorted out, his father had missed work, lost a day's pay, and come home with something broken in his eyes. "The world doesn't reward us for being good," his father had said. "It punishes us for being visible." But Elijah's wife, Sarah, had taught him something different before she died. It was 2 years ago, pancreatic cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. Near the end, when the morphine made her words soft and slow, she'd held his hand and made him promise something. "Don't let this world make you small," she'd said. "Lily needs to see you be brave. Not stupid brave, just human brave. The kind that helps because it's right, even when it's hard," he'd promised. So when he saw Naomi Brooks stuck in that storm drain, when he saw the way people flowed around her like she was invisible, when he heard her say, "Leave me," with that particular kind of exhaustion that comes from being failed by the world too many times, something in him refused to walk away, even though his hands were shaking, even though he could feel eyes on him from the coffee shop window across the street, even though every instinct he'd developed over 34 years of being black in America was screaming at him to keep moving, to not get involved, to protect himself. He thought about Lily, about the way she asked questions that had no easy answers. "Daddy, why did that lady move away from us on the bus? Daddy, why did that man follow you in the store? Daddy, why do you always keep your hands where people can see them?" What would he tell her about this moment? That he walked away because it was safer? That he protected himself at the cost of someone else's dignity? That being good was a luxury he couldn't afford? Or would he tell her that he stayed? That sometimes doing the right thing means accepting risk? That humanity isn't a privilege, it's a choice. The rain was getting heavier. Naomi was shivering now, her hair plastered to her face, her jacket soaked through. The wheelchair wheel was wedged deep in the grate, and the angle was getting worse as water pushed against it. Elijah took another step forward. "I'm going to kneel down and check the wheel," he said, making sure his voice was calm, clear, loud enough for anyone watching to hear. "I won't touch you. Just the chair." He was terrified. But he stayed. Elijah knelt in the water, his jeans soaking through immediately. Cold seeped into his bones, but he kept his movements slow, deliberate, visible. His hands gripped the wheelchair frame about 6 inches from where Naomi's fingers clutched the armrests. "On 3, he said. "I'll lift, you steer backward. Okay?" Naomi nodded. Her jaw was clenched so tight he could see the muscles working. She wasn't just cold. She was humiliated. The kind of shame that comes from needing help you can't give yourself, from being stranded in public while hundreds of people pretend not to see you. Elijah positioned his feet, mindful of the distance between them. Not too close. Never too close. He could hear his own breathing over the rain, could feel the weight of the moment pressing down harder than the water. 3. He lifted. The chair rose about 4 inches, the wheel scraping against metal. Naomi pushed backward on the rims, her arms straining. For a second, nothing happened. Then the wheel popped free with a sucking sound, and the chair rolled backward onto flat pavement. Elijah stood up quickly, stepping back, putting space between them. His hands were out at his sides, open, empty, safe. Naomi was breathing hard, water dripping from her nose and chin. She looked up at him, and for the first time, really seemed to see him, not as a threat or a helper or a social equation to solve, but as a person. "Thank you," she said. 2 words. But they carried weight. Elijah nodded. "You need help getting somewhere? I can walk with you to your building, or call someone, or I'm fine," Naomi said quickly. Too quickly, the wall's going back up. "I'm just 2 blocks from home. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. They both knew it. But Elijah understood boundaries, understood that help even when accepted, could still feel like another kind of loss. "Okay," he said. Then, because Sarah's voice was in his head telling him to be human brave, he added, "I walk this route most days, around 6. If you're ever stuck, I'm Elijah. Elijah Carter." He didn't offer his hand, didn't move closer, just gave his name like a gift she could choose to accept or ignore. Naomi studied him for a long moment. Rain fell between them. Somewhere behind them, a bus hissed to a stop, and people got on with their lives. "Naomi," she finally said. "Naomi Brooks. Stay safe, Naomi Brooks." He walked away before she could respond. His phone was buzzing insistently now. Lily would be worried. Mrs. Chen would be charging him extra. He was soaked to the bone, and his boots squelched with every step. But as he turned the corner toward home, Elijah felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not pride, exactly. More like alignment, like the person he was matched the person Sarah had believed he could be. He had stayed. It was enough. 3 days later, Elijah was in Harper's Market on East 38th Street, Lily's hand in his, when he saw Naomi again. She was near the produce section, reaching for a bag of apples on a shelf just slightly too high. The wheelchair made certain angles impossible, certain shelves unreachable. Elijah watched her try 3 times, her arm extended, fingertips grazing the plastic bag but not quite grasping it. "Daddy, that's the rain lady," Lily whispered, her 6-year-old voice carrying farther than a whisper should. Naomi's head turned. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by something more complicated. Embarrassment, maybe. Or resignation. Elijah squeezed Lily's hand gently. "Stay here for just a second, baby." He walked over, moving slowly, making sure Naomi could see him coming. "The apples?" he asked, keeping his distance. "I've almost got it," Naomi said, reaching again. Elijah grabbed the bag and set it in her lap, then stepped back immediately. "Honey Crisps are good this time of year, thank you." The silence stretched between them, filled with the ambient noise of the grocery store. Scanner beeps, cartwheels, a child crying somewhere in aisle 4. Then Lily appeared at Elijah's side, ignoring his instruction to stay put with the confidence of a child who knows she's loved unconditionally. "Hi," Lily said to Naomi. "I'm Lily." "That's my daddy. He helped you in the rain." Naomi's expression softened imperceptibly. "He did. Are you okay now?" It was such a simple question, asked with such genuine concern, that Naomi actually smiled. Small, brief, but real. "I'm getting there," Naomi said. "That's good," Lily said, as if that settled the matter. "We're getting fish sticks. Do you like fish sticks?" Before Naomi could answer, a store employee appeared. Brad, according to his name tag. Mid-20s, buzzed hair, the kind of overeager vigilance that comes from 3 months of retail security training. "Everything okay here?" Brad asked, looking directly at Elijah. The question was innocent on its surface. But the emphasis on here, the way Brad positioned himself slightly between Elijah and Naomi, the hand that drifted to his radio, told a different story. Elijah felt Lily's hand tighten in his. She was young, but she was learning. Learning to read the room. Learning when her father's body went still in a particular way. "Everything's fine," Naomi said, her voice sharp. "He was helping me reach something. I can help you if you need." I said everything's fine. Naomi's tone had an edge now. "I know this man. He's a friend." The lie hung in the air. They weren't friends. They'd spoken maybe 15 sentences total. But the lie was a shield, and Brad accepted it with a nod and a mumbled apology before walking away. Elijah exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry," Naomi said quietly. "That was regular," Elijah finished. "That was regular." Lily tugged his hand. "Daddy, are we getting fish sticks?" "Yeah, baby. Go grab a box from the freezer, the kind with the smiley faces." Lily bounded off, happy to have a mission. Elijah looked back at Naomi. "Thank you," he said. "For that, don't thank me for basic decency. I have to. It's not as common as you'd think." Naomi's hands fidgeted with the apple bag in her lap. "Do you want to get coffee sometime?" "I mean, with Lily." "Obviously with Lily. I think I owe you more than thanks." "You don't owe me anything." "I know. But maybe I want to," Elijah considered. Weighed the risk against the loneliness he saw in Naomi's eyes that mirrored his own. "Harbor Bean Cafe," he said. Saturday morning at Harbor Bean Cafe was gentle chaos. The smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls, the hiss of the espresso machine, the low murmur of conversation that felt like a blanket. Elijah and Lily arrived first, claiming a corner table with enough room for a wheelchair to pull up comfortably. Lily had insisted on wearing her purple dress with the sparkles. "We're meeting a new friend," she'd explained seriously. "You have to look nice for new friends." When Naomi wheeled through the door at 10:07, Lily waved enthusiastically. "We're over here!" Naomi maneuvered through the tables with practiced efficiency, but Elijah noticed the slight hesitation before she entered, the way she'd checked the entrance for steps, the way her eyes scanned for accessible seating. All the calculations that able-bodied people never had to make. "You came," Naomi said, and there was surprise in her voice. "Lily wouldn't let me forget," Elijah said. "She's been asking about you since Tuesday." "I wanted to make sure you were okay," Lily said, leaning forward with her elbows on the table. "Daddy says sometimes people need checking on." Naomi smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "That's very wise. What's wrong with your legs?" Lily asked, with the blunt curiosity of children who haven't yet learned that some questions are supposed to stay silent. "Lily," Elijah started, but Naomi held up a hand. "It's okay." She looked at Lily directly. "I was in a car accident 3 years ago. My spine got hurt, and now my legs don't work the way they used to, so I use this chair to get around." "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes, but mostly it's just different." "Different isn't bad," Lily said with absolute certainty. "My friend Connor is different. He doesn't talk like other kids, but he's really good at building things." "Different isn't bad," Naomi agreed softly. Elijah went to get coffee and hot chocolate, leaving them at the table. When he returned, Lily was explaining the intricate social dynamics of first grade, and Naomi was actually laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but real laughter that came from somewhere deep and unused. And then Marcus, not your Marcus, Daddy, a different Marcus. He said that butterflies are just flies with fancy wings. And Miss Peterson said that's technically not wrong, but also not right. And I said, "You said that butterflies undergo complete metamorphosis," Elijah supplied, setting down drinks. "Because we watched that documentary." "Twice," Lily confirmed. "We watched it twice." The hour passed like water. Lily asked Naomi about the wheelchair, about what she did for work, graphic design, freelance, from home, about whether she had pets. No, but she used to have a cat named Picasso. She asked without judgment, without pity, just pure interest in another human's experience. Elijah watched Naomi unfold. The defensive walls she'd carried in the grocery store had lowered. She was leaning forward, engaged, present. At one point, Lily reached across the table to show Naomi a drawing in her notebook, and Naomi's hand came up automatically to look at it, and their fingers touched briefly, and neither pulled away. It was Lily who asked the question that changed everything. "Do you want to come to my school's art show next Friday?" I made a painting of the rain. Naomi hesitated, and Elijah saw the familiar calculation. Commit to plans, risk disappointment, open the door to needing people. "I'd love to," Naomi said. Lily beamed. "Daddy, she's coming to my art show." "I heard, baby." Outside, the morning sun broke through clouds, and inside Harbor Bean Cafe, 3 people who had been strangers 5 days ago became the beginning of something that looked like family. The art show was on a Friday evening at Lincoln Elementary. The hallways were lined with construction paper masterpieces and macaroni sculptures. Proud parents held phones horizontally, recording everything. Lily dragged both Elijah and Naomi from display to display, explaining each piece with the confidence of a museum docent. Afterward, they went back to Harbor Bean. Lily fell asleep in a chair, her head on Elijah's lap, exhausted from excitement. The cafe was quiet now, just a few other people scattered at distant tables. "She's wonderful," Naomi said, watching Lily sleep. "You're raising her alone? 2 years now." Elijah stroked his daughter's hair absently. "My wife, Sarah, died of cancer. Lily was 4. Some days I'm not sure I'm doing it right, but we're making it work. I'm sorry." "Me too." He paused. "What about you? Family nearby?" Naomi's expression shuddered. "My parents are in Florida. They wanted me to move down there after the accident, but..." She trailed off. "We don't talk much anymore. Because you wouldn't move? Because I couldn't be what they needed me to be." Naomi's fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup. "They wanted me fixed. Better. Back to normal. And when that didn't happen fast enough, when I couldn't just positive think my way out of paralysis, they got frustrated. That's not fair. No. But it's common." She looked up at him. "Do you know what I did before the accident?" Elijah shook his head. "Ballet. Professional ballet. I was in the Cleveland Ballet Company, not principal dancer, but soloist. I was good. I was really good." Her voice carried something between pride and grief. "My whole life was about movement, about control and precision, and making my body do impossible things. And then my body stopped obeying." Naomi's laugh was bitter. "Black ice, wrong place, wrong second. I don't even remember the impact, just waking up in the hospital and finding out that everything I was had been deleted." Elijah was quiet for a moment. "Is that why you said, 'Leave me in the rain'?" "Maybe. I think I've gotten used to being left." She met his eyes. "After the accident, I did 8 months of physical therapy, intensive, 5 days a week. They told me I might regain partial function, might be able to walk with assistance. I worked so hard, every exercise, every painful session. I did everything right. But my body didn't cooperate. The progress stopped. The therapists started using words like plateau and acceptance. My parents started talking about realistic expectations. My boyfriend, who'd been so supportive at first, started finding reasons to not visit. And I realized something. What? That I could survive, but I couldn't live. There's a difference." Naomi's voice was steady now, matter of fact. "Surviving is getting up, going through the motions, existing. Living is hoping for things, planning for things, believing things can get better." "So you stopped therapy 15 months ago." "I told myself it was practical. I needed to work, earn money, move on. But really, I just couldn't keep trying and failing. Easier to accept limitation than to keep fighting for change that might never come." Lily stirred in her sleep, murmuring something about purple butterflies. Elijah adjusted his position so she'd be more comfortable. "What if you tried again?" he asked quietly. "Why would this time be different?" "I don't know if it would be. But what if you didn't do it alone?" Naomi looked at him for a long time. In her eyes, he could see the war between hope and self-protection, between the desire to try and the fear of failing. "I can't promise anything," she finally said. "I'm not asking for promises, just possibility." Outside the cafe windows, evening settled into night, and inside, Naomi Brooks started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could try one more time. Lakeview Rehabilitation Center sat in a converted warehouse in Cleveland's Collinwood neighborhood. Large windows let in natural light. The equipment was industrial but clean. The walls were painted a pale blue that was probably meant to be soothing, but mostly just looked institutional. Daniel Wright, the physical therapist, was in his late 40s with gray hair and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd seen every excuse and motivated past all of them. "Naomi Brooks," he said, reading from her intake form. "Been out of therapy for 15 months. Previous diagnosis: incomplete T11 spinal cord injury with limited lower extremity function." He looked up. "Why are you back?" Naomi, sitting in her wheelchair in the assessment room with Elijah standing a respectful distance behind her, took a breath. "I want to try again." The question wasn't hostile, but it wasn't gentle either. Daniel was testing her resolve, because someone reminded me that surviving isn't the same as living. Daniel glanced at Elijah, then back to Naomi. "And who's this?" "A friend," Naomi said. The word felt strange in her mouth, like speaking a foreign language, but also right. Friend going to be here for the hard parts? The crying parts? The parts where you want to quit? "Yes," Elijah said before Naomi could answer. Daniel studied them both for a long moment. Then he set down the clipboard. "Okay, let's see what we're working with." The assessment was brutal in its honesty. Range of motion tests, strength evaluations, balance assessments. Naomi had lost ground in the 15 months away. Muscles that had been slowly rebuilding had atrophied. Techniques she'd learned had been forgotten. "You're starting over," Daniel said bluntly. 15 months ago, you were at about 30% function recovery. Now you're back to maybe 15%. You understand what that means? It means I have a long way to go. It means you might not get back to where you were before. It means this is going to hurt, going to be frustrating, going to make you want to quit about a dozen times a day. "Still want to do this?" Naomi's hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair. Every part of her wanted to say no, to wheel out of this building and back into the safe numbness of survival. But then she looked at Elijah, who was watching her with that same patient steadiness he'd had in the rain. "Yes," she said. They started the next day. The first week was hell. Simple exercises that Naomi remembered doing easily 15 months ago now left her shaking and exhausted. Parallel bar walks that she used to manage for 20 feet now ended after 5. Her legs cramped, her back ached, and every muscle screamed that this was impossible. But Elijah was there. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, Saturday mornings. He'd bring Lily sometimes, and she'd sit on a mat nearby doing homework or drawing pictures of Miss Naomi being strong. When Lily couldn't come, he'd come alone, sitting in the corner. Never intrusive, but always present. "You don't have to keep coming," Naomi told him after a particularly rough session in the second week. She'd collapsed onto the mat, sweating and exhausted, after managing only 12 steps. "I know," Elijah said. "I mean, you have work, you have Lily, you have your own life." "I do, and part of that life is this." He considered the question, because when Sarah was sick, people showed up, brought food, watched Lily, sat with us. They didn't have to. They chose to, and it made the impossible slightly less impossible. He paused. "Maybe this is me paying that forward. I'm not your debt to repay. No. You're my friend. And friends show up." The word again, friend. Each time Naomi heard it, it felt a little more true. By the end of week 3, she managed 20 steps. By week 5, 32. Progress was slow, measured in increments so small they almost didn't count. But they counted. Week 7 started with promise. Naomi had managed 43 steps on Thursday, her personal record. Daniel had nodded approval, which from him was equivalent to throwing a parade. Lily had made her a congratulations card with glitter butterflies. Saturday morning, Naomi came to the session feeling strong, determined, ready to hit 50 steps. The parallel bars stretched in front of her, familiar now. She gripped them, pulled herself up from the wheelchair with Elijah spotting from behind. Her legs trembled but held. 1 step, 2, 3. At step 15, her left knee buckled. It happened fast. One moment she was upright, the next she was falling. Elijah lunged forward to catch her but couldn't get there in time. She hit the mat hard, her shoulder taking most of the impact. Her left leg twisted at an angle that sent lightning bolts of pain up her spine. The room went silent. Then Naomi started crying. Not quiet tears, but gulping, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deeper than physical pain. "I'm done," she said through tears. "I can't. I'm done." "You're okay," Elijah said, kneeling beside her. "Nothing's broken. You don't understand." Naomi pushed herself into a sitting position, her face flushed and wet. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep trying and falling and trying and failing. I can't." Daniel approached with the wheelchair. "Let's get you up." "No." Naomi wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I'm done. With all of it. This was a mistake." She transferred back to the wheelchair, refusing help, refusing eye contact. Her hands shook as she gripped the wheels. Naomi Elijah started. "Thank you for everything," she said, her voice flat now, emptied out. "But I can't do this anymore. Please don't follow me." She left. Elijah stood in the empty therapy room, watching her go, Daniel beside him. "Should I?" "No," Daniel said. "She needs space. She'll either come back or she won't. You can't want it more than she does." But Elijah couldn't let it go that easily. That night, he sent a text. "I'm here if you need anything." No response. Sunday, "Lily drew you another picture. Can I drop it off?" No response. Monday, "I'm not giving up on you." Tuesday morning, he finally got a reply. "Please do. I'm not worth the effort." Then, "I'm done. Thank you for trying." Elijah stared at the messages. In the background, Lily was singing while eating breakfast, something about butterflies and rainbows. Mrs. Chen was knocking on the door for her weekly rent collection. The hospital had sent another bill for Sarah's final month, numbers that made his stomach hurt. He had his own struggles, his own weight to carry, his own daughter who needed him fully present, not distracted by trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. The smart thing would be to let Naomi go, to respect her choice, to focus on his own life. But as he watched Lily spin in circles, her purple dress flaring, he remembered the way Naomi had laughed at the cafe, the way she'd studied Lily's drawing with genuine interest, the way she'd said friend like someone learning to trust again. He remembered his promise to Sarah. He remembered the man in the rain who had chosen to stay. "Daddy?" Lily asked. "Can we visit Miss Naomi today?" "Not today, baby." "Is she okay?" Elijah didn't know how to answer that. So he just held his daughter close and hoped that sometimes choosing to care was enough, even when you couldn't fix what was broken. The hospital bill sat on Elijah's kitchen table like an accusation. $2,847.63. He'd been paying it off in installments, $20 here, $50 there, whatever he could spare after rent, groceries, Lily's school expenses, and Mrs. Chen's babysitting fees. But this month had been tight. The truck needed new brakes. Lily had outgrown her winter coat, and he'd been taking time off work to go to Naomi's therapy sessions. His foreman at Morrison Construction had been understanding at first. "Family emergency," Elijah had said, and technically it wasn't a lie, but understanding had limits, and those limits were measured in labor hours and project deadlines. "Carter," Joe Morrison had said on Tuesday, "you're a good worker, one of my best. But I need people I can count on to be here. You've been late 3 times this month, left early twice. I can't keep juggling the schedule around you. I know. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. It better not. Because next time, I'll have to let you go." Elijah had nodded, apologized again, and worked through lunch to make up the time. But the math was simple. He couldn't keep taking time off for Naomi's sessions, and without those sessions, what had been the point of any of it? Wednesday night, Lily spiked a fever. It started as crankiness at dinner, progressed to flushed cheeks by bath time, and by 9 p.m., she was at 103.2 degrees. Elijah gave her children's ibuprofen and put a cool cloth on her forehead, but by midnight, the fever had climbed to 104. The emergency room at Metro Health was bright and crowded. A drunk man was yelling at the nurses. A woman cradled a baby who wouldn't stop crying. Lily lay with her head in Elijah's lap, her skin too hot, her breathing too shallow. "She's going to be okay," the doctor said after examining her. "It's a viral infection. Fever should break in 24 to 48 hours. Keep her hydrated, alternate ibuprofen and acetaminophen. Watch for signs of dehydration. The ER bill would be at least $500, probably more." Elijah signed the discharge papers and carried Lily to the truck, her small body burning against his chest. At home, he set up a makeshift bed on the couch so he could monitor her through the night. Every hour, he checked her temperature, coaxed her to drink water, changed the cool cloth. By 3 a.m., he was exhausted. By 5 a.m., he was praying, not to anyone specific, just to the universe, to Sarah, to whatever force might be listening. Please let her be okay. Please. Lily woke up at 6:30 a.m. The fever had dropped to 101. She looked at him with tired eyes and asked, "Is Miss Naomi okay?" Of all the questions she could have asked, that wasn't the one Elijah expected. "What do you mean, baby? You've been sad since Saturday." "Is she hurt?" She had a hard day. She's taking a break from therapy." "Because she fell?" "Yeah." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this with the serious contemplation of children who understand more than adults give them credit for. "When I fall, you tell me to get back up." "I do. Maybe Miss Naomi needs someone to tell her that." Elijah looked at his daughter, this small human who had survived the loss of her mother and still believed in second chances, and felt something crack open in his chest. "Maybe she does. We should tell her." "Lily, it's more complicated than Daddy." Lily put her small, hot hand on his cheek. "You helped her in the rain, even though you were scared. What if she doesn't want help? You asked anyway." The sun was rising outside the window, pale light filtering through the blinds. Elijah's phone sat on the coffee table, Naomi's last message still on the screen. He thought about his promise to Sarah, about being human brave, about the cost of caring and whether it was a cost worth paying. He picked up his phone. "Lily's been sick. She's okay now. But she asked about you. She wanted to make sure you're okay too. Sometimes the people who care about us see things we can't see in ourselves. You don't have to respond, but we're here." Still, he hit send and waited. The message came 3 days later at 6:47 a.m. on a Saturday. "I'm at Lakeview, if you want to come." Elijah woke Lily up early, helped her into her favorite purple dress, and they drove through the quiet morning streets to the rehabilitation center. His heart was pounding. He didn't know what to expect, didn't know if Naomi was there to try again or to officially quit. They found her in the main therapy room, already at the parallel bars. Daniel was there, setting up the mat. Neither of them spoke when Elijah and Lily entered. Naomi just looked at them, and her eyes were red-rimmed but determined. "I need witnesses," she said simply. "For what?" Lily asked. "For something I'm going to do. Or try to do." Daniel handed Naomi the leg braces she used for support during standing exercises. She strapped them on with practiced efficiency, her jaw set, her hands steady. 20 steps, she said. "That's the goal. Not 40, not 50. 20, that's a good goal," Daniel said. Naomi transferred from the wheelchair to the bars. Her arms took her weight as she pulled herself upright. Her legs trembled, but they held. "I'm terrified," she said, and it wasn't clear if she was talking to them or to herself. "Fear is okay. Elijah said quietly. Staying frozen is what hurts. Naomi took the first step, then the second. Her breathing was controlled, focused. Each step was deliberate, measured. At step 5, she paused. "Keep going," Daniel said. At step 8, her left leg wavered. "You've got it," Elijah said. At step 12, she was sweating, her arms shaking from the effort of holding herself up. "Miss Naomi, you're doing so good," Lily called out. 15 steps. Naomi's face was flushed now, every muscle in her body engaged in the simple act of moving forward. Her breathing was ragged. 3 more, Daniel said. 16. 17. At 18, Naomi stopped. "I can't." 2 more, Elijah said. "Just 2. Elijah, 2 more steps, and you've done something you couldn't do 10 minutes ago. 2 more steps, and you've proven to yourself that falling doesn't mean failing." Naomi's hands gripped the bars so tight her knuckles were white. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't stop. 19. 20. She made it to the end of the parallel bars and immediately collapsed onto the mat, sobbing. But this time, the sobs were different. They were release. Relief. The sound of someone who had forgotten how to hope learning to try again. Lily ran over and sat beside her on the mat, not touching but present. "I knew you could do it." "I didn't," Naomi said through tears. "I really didn't." "But you did it anyway," Elijah said, kneeling on her other side. "That's what bravery looks like." Daniel brought over the wheelchair. "Good work, Brooks." "Same time Monday?" Naomi nodded, unable to speak. They stayed until Naomi caught her breath, until the shaking in her limbs subsided, until she could transfer back to the chair without help. Then Elijah drove her home, Lily chattering in the back seat about butterflies and bravery, and how her teacher said that caterpillars have to work really hard to become butterflies, and sometimes it hurts, but it's worth it. The following weeks were not easy. Progress came in frustrating increments. Some days, Naomi managed 25 steps. Other days, barely 15. There were more falls, more tears, more moments when she wanted to quit, but she didn't quit, and Elijah kept showing up. 3 months later, on a Tuesday morning in early spring, Naomi walked into Harbor Bean Cafe using forearm crutches instead of her wheelchair. 23 unsteady steps from the door to the corner table where Elijah and Lily were waiting. The cafe went quiet as people noticed, not with pity, but with the kind of reverent acknowledgement reserved for witnessing someone do something extraordinary. Naomi reached the table and carefully lowered herself into a chair, her crutches propped against the wall. Her legs were shaking. Her arms ached, but she was standing on her own feet, bearing her own weight, occupying space in the world in a way she hadn't been able to for 3 years. "You walked," Lily said, her eyes wide. "I walked," Naomi confirmed. Elijah didn't say anything. He just reached across the table and squeezed her hand briefly. And in that moment, all the accumulated weight of the past months, the fear, the doubt, the stubborn refusal to give up, settled into something simpler. Connection. Human to human. Outside Harbor Bean, the spring sun was warm, and inside, 3 people who had been saved by each other's refusal to walk away sat together in comfortable silence, drinking coffee and believing in second chances. Because sometimes staying is the bravest thing you can do, and sometimes the people who stay change everything.